Hey guys, this is Phil Galfond. Not much needs to be said about Phil for the poker players out there. He's an online legend and heads up PLO end boss. And in this video, somehow I end up playing him heads up at the highest stakes I've ever shot took. Let's just say he laid out some bait, and like a fish, I took it. Of course, I'm not actually going to play one of the best heads up players at 50-100 with 100% of myself. So I tried to sell some action to some of my buddies who were online at the time when Phil was streaming. This is basically how it went down. $37% sold, which leaves 63% for myself. Let's go get him. Alright, so I'm just going to watch parts of our heads up match from Phil's YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the description below so you guys can check out the full video if you want. I'm also going to just overlay my hands from the session onto the video so you guys can see the whole cards from both perspectives. Alright, let's go to game history and Omaha, of course. One of these sessions is not like the others.
I think I heard an extra beep. Yeah, I did. Okay, we got heads up PLO action. How do we want to do this? I guess we'll do it this way.
I think my dumb screen names got him suspicious.
Anyone know who Christ is Lord is? I mean, I know who Jesus Christ is, but Christ is Lord. Do you know who he is?
Live chat doesn't know anything.
Check back flop.
Flop checks and I lead turn. I got the 8 for the straight blocker, second nut flush draw, and 2 pair, so I like the turn bet.
Call turn.
River King's actually a pretty bad card for my hand. When Phil checks back flop and calls turn, put him on a decent amount of queen 9, queen ace type stuff, which I unblock, and not much heart draws since I block it.
Heads up match has resumed.
So I go for the check,
Off to the side.
though a block bet might
For
be
me,
alright.
and then I'm got a bluff river. Really unhappy about it though.
I think Phil should bluff here with a ace and a 9 blocker.
Because I just think I don't know why I think he's calling, but ace 9 blockers bottom, absolute bottom of my range. That's just a very clear bluff.
So he pots here, and I end up folding, which I don't hate at all. Definitely calling if I have a queen in my hand.
And pot is the sizing. I'm repping queen 9 and ace 9, or ace queen and ace 9.
If I have an ace or a 9 or unblock hearts, I should also find a call.
Cheesecake asks why I get so many junk PLO hands. I don't know. Must be like a software issue. Easy check call.
I think Phil should call against a 1/3 sizing, and I think people should use small sizings on paired boards. I bet small again on turn. On turn, I should have definitely boat advantage, and quads might be even, or I might have the advantage depending on Phil's trip queen's flop raise strategy. Betting turn also allows me to barrel river as a bluff with an ace and a king blocker in my hand.
Don't know this guy, so I'm gonna go with check call. I think it's like, you know, I mean, he probably has a flush now. A lot of pocket pairs might check flop, you know, like pocket sixes and stuff. Wow, he value owned me on the turn.
Worked out for me, but I think I rather like turning my hand into a bluff on this river.
Craig says my demeanor encourages good behavior from the chat. Thank you. I think it might have an impact. We're 3-betting here. Oh no, we don't get to because he limps as well.
I play a lot of heads up on WSOP, so if anyone's actually played me on there, they know that I have a very heavy limping strategy. I really like heads up because I feel like you can do a lot of different strategies, and it's more on the feel and ability to read the opponent rather than following some charts.
2020 or 2021? I feel like this is a check call.
All right, we're going to go forward to the next interesting spot. I limp fold again when Phil finds a 3-bettable hand.
8-8 deuce deuce. We're going to 3-bet. Nope. Every time I say that, he limps. Okay, so he's limp folded. Has he limp folded twice now?
Definitely an unconventional strategy, but it's worked for me on line heads up.
This is a check. It's almost a bet, and it wouldn't be the worst bet.
I'm going to pause here because this hand's kind of funny. I didn't 3-bet King King 10 9, which I do 3-bet 100% of the time at lower stakes, just because it's 50-100, and I was like, oh man, $900, a lot of money. Which is obviously a stupid reason, and one that indicates that I shouldn't be in this game, along with several other reasons, of course. But honestly, I don't really study preflop, so it's whatever.
Turn gets a lot closer. I'm going to go ahead and bet the turn. It's kind of a value protection, good cards in my hand related to the board bet, and now we just show down despite having the ace of diamonds.
Anyways, his river check is perfectly fine, improving to 2-pair. I think it's kind of silly to turn his hand into a bluff with a nut ace blocker because it's heads up, and I'm check calling every flush. And a lot of straights, especially with the diamond blocker. I think you want to utilize the ace of diamonds if you don't improve to 2-pair or if your opponent leads river. So yeah, here's Galfond reacting to me not 3-betting King King.
He did not 3-bet King King 10 9, so I mean, this is not, like, it's clearly not correct to not 3-bet that hand. And limp folding is not, I mean, it is a thing, actually. Limp folding is not totally unreasonable, but a lot of players don't do it. I'm going to mark him as a non-pro for now.
So purple equals fish?
Obviously, he might be a pro in a different format. And obviously, you know, judging somebody off of 1 or 2 hands is not the...
And YouTube chat's got us tagged too.
Not always the way to go, but you gotta, like, I think it's better to start with, you know, potential reads than to ignore all reads entirely.
All right, this hand's pretty interesting. I think Phil typically has a high-frequency small c-bet strategy on paired static boards, so I want to see how he reacts to a check raise, and this should also typically fold out all his air with some overs that have some equity.
get checked to on the turn. So good strategy here is like you do a lot of small betting.
Turn, I decide to check, and I actually expected Phil to bet small here because I learned this exact line from one of his Run It Once videos, and I use it myself. The gist is basically when facing a check raise check line on a board that didn't change textures, the opponent, which is me in this case, will have a pretty polarized range of air and super nuts. Against air, a small bet will just take it down. Against super nuts, a small bet will save money if you get check raised again. And in case you do actually have a very strong hand here, like boats and stuff, you won't need protection on a board like this, so a small bet also makes a lot of sense. At this point in the hand, I'm actually undecided what I'm going to do as I decide between my two options of check folding and double check raise bluffing. The 8's very relevant here, as if Phil faces a double check raise, he should be folding his exact hand here. And if he does have a 3 in his hand, he's often going to be against 8-8. And his life will be absolutely terrible. I think Phil, being sort of a field player, also recognizes the danger of the spot, and I think that's why he goes for a check here instead of a small bet, which is his usual line.
I'm a little nervous to do it against him for some reason. I'm just going to check. I have 2 overcards to my jacks, so it's not like I need a ton of protection.
And finally, on the river, I can pretty much eliminate 3x from Phil's range, so I go for a block value bet. It's kind of merged. I'll get value owned by aces, but I block a king, so kings are unlikely, and I actually think with this sizing, he'll look me up with 9-9 and 10-10, which I don't block, and of course, any quality queen.
Tiny bet. I mean, I'm going to call and let's see what he has. Queen 8. Okay, so he's going for the protection-y flop raise. River bet makes a lot of sense.
This next hand I usually raise pre, but I knew I was going to watch Galfond's video later, so I wanted to limp and hopefully get some input on what he thought against a limping strategy.
Check call here. Oh, now we have the nuts. When he checks back turn, he's not going to have a lot of 2-pair on the turn, especially because like flop 2-pair are still good enough to bet. So I'm going to go for the check raise. Hope he rivered ace deuce. Or finds a bluff.
I have an ace and a 6 blocker here for the straights, and I block spades, but I don't block top pair, so I think this is a very logical hand to turn into bluff. And of course, Phil is good enough to have the nuts in his checking range here, although I think it's a little difficult to find some bluffs here.
So the thought process there is based, I mean, obviously sometimes with the nuts you check raise river, but I think in this spot in particular, I like going for it more than most because like his value range on the flop is like queen 5 plus or whatever, stuff like that. And those are the hands I'm looking to get called by, but when he checks the turn, he doesn't have those so much anymore. So I need to hope that he rivered something, or I instead hope that he rivered something that can call me, and most of the hands that he rivers that can call me can bet themselves. This flop you go either way. I'm going to check.
On this turn, I make a flush. I could go for a lead or a check call line. I went with a check call line.
We'll check back once again.
On this river, I just want value. Not necessarily targeting a 4x. If I were, I'd go a little bigger, but the smaller bet targets some overpairs with a club blocker, which I think Phil will look me up.
With the jack.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit again.
Queens.
So this next hand, I was actually going to limp re-raise Phil because he has been attacking some of my limps at a reasonable frequency, nothing too crazy, but with his exact hand, of course, he checks back. And on this flop, I have a pretty simple c-bet. I don't mind getting raised at all with this hand, and same logic applies for the turn, especially with the jack blocker. Not a fan of Phil's hand here, but I haven't been playing too aggressively, so probably in his mind, he can be opening over 90%.
This is a call of the 3-bet, even though it looks like a very ugly hand.
I go with a third pot bet. I have pretty huge range advantage, especially with the tight 3-bet range. And I expect like straight draws and diamonds to continue.
And this is a call of the third pot bet.
Awful turn card for my hand, and I'm planning to just check fold.
And I'll go with check turn.
With 3 diamonds, I definitely would have bet if I were Phil.
And I'll value bet river. And value bet and call a raise with 3 diamonds in my hand.
Again, I probably would have just bet on the turn instead of the river if I were Phil, because I'm going to be so aces heavy.
Gonna 3-bet. Nope, he never lets me 3-bet, does he?
The amount of times I've limp folded to Phil's 3-bettable hands is
Here
pretty
are
comical at this
queens.
point.
Not that I expect to get raised.
Alright, moving forward, we got queens here. Some
There we go.
queens I open. This one I limp call. Some
just
double suited
ripping
queens
here.
I'll limp re-raise or open.
Check range on 3-6-5.
Check seems reasonable. I have a bet. And here
He's gonna have
Phil's
some worse
just
hands behind
commentating
me.
on his no limit
I'm
tournament
not
bust out hand, or about to.
Gonna check call with a gut shot.
And backdoor clubs.
Wow, he had a big hand. And that's gonna be the end of me. Check fold here.
Phil backdoor clubs, and he chooses to fold here, which I probably would have peeled.
Oh, we missed the re-entry period. All right, so no more tournaments. We're gonna update the update the title momentarily.
Skipping forward again, I open and I get 3-bet by Phil.
We'll 3-bet this, although this 3-bet's starting to get iffy because of how often he's limping. And this is actually a flop where I do a lot of potting or checking.
I definitely agree with Phil. Against a regular opponent, I think 3-betting is pretty standard, but against someone who's limping like 60% of their range, gotta be a lot more careful 3-betting hands like this. Anyways, I completely whiff, and if it was a smaller bet, I'd peel for the backdoor diamonds, but can't call a pot bet. And moving forward, I get double suited deuces, raise or call. Don't think it really matters. I just sort of wing it heads up. Also, how are my opponents going to input my ranges into their solvers if even I don't have a set strategy for my pre-flop game?
Bad flop for me.
Yes, it is.
Range and hand. He's doing a lot of small betting, which is fine. But just it's sometimes important to keep in mind, like, to plan your checking ranges based on how often you're seeing big bets and small bets. Now we see the big bet, but we can obviously continue. I don't think I want to raise here.
Good choice, Phil.
Though it's not bad too.
If he raises, I have to put him on something like 10-7 and ship it in, and I think Phil has to call off. And on this river, I think I have a very straightforward check back.
Big hand for him on the turn. Glad I didn't raise.
I have no straight cards, and Phil's capable of raise bluffing, which is ugly.
He's got a dicey spot on the river. I understand his check for sure. I think his check is reasonable, but it's close. Deuces. Let's just fold. I mean, he's opening a tight range.
All right, this is the big one.
Good flop. Let's bet.
I thought it was a good flop too.
Get check raised, easy call. Note that he did earlier check raise with a weak top pair, so the equivalent of like King Jack here.
Definitely on my mind.
Now he checks again. I guess we're going small bet again, or we thought about small bet last time. We didn't do it. This time we will small bet.
I definitely went for the check raise check line again because of our history.
This is maybe,
He knows.
This is not good. We're going to start by calling.
Like I said, Phil's got really good instincts, and I think he knows he's in a really ugly spot.
It's just interesting. I guess, like, is he really? Because last time if he's thinking about the last hand, I didn't bet the last time. So sometimes when people think back to a previous hand, they like want it to play out like it did last time. Man, I don't think he's...
He doesn't think I'm bluffing, and his instincts are obviously correct here. But given the history of the first check raise check line that he saw at Showdown, I don't think there's any possible way he can fold. Also, I don't know how big of an effect this is, but he is streaming with an audience of 1,000 viewers, so I think folding will look pretty sad in front of all his viewers. I don't know if Phil cares about that too much, but everyone does sort of care about what others think about them. And then finally, the stakes actually aren't that big for Phil, so if he's curious enough, he'll just call. I also did something a little bit trolly. I bet 44.74. I wanted to sort of convey the idea that I had 7-4, so that he might subconsciously look at that and be like, okay, he could have a worse hand like 7-4.
I have to hope that he's value betting the same hand or worse, and then potentially some random bluffs. I just am not ready to fold this without more reads against him. But that's what I usually see, I guess.
He looks kind of disappointed in his pretty standard call.
I think
I also
maybe
felt
I
like
could.
Galfond probably viewed me as a bit of a nit, so I felt like if I went full pot, he could actually find a pretty godly hero fold, and I didn't want that, so I went less than pot.
He just hasn't been very bluffy yet. He's been very straightforward so far. Here, this is kind of a weird spot and sizing.
Just wanted some grocery money.
I mean, it's so cheap. I'm gonna pay it off and find out. But yeah, I do have to be a little more disciplined. We get the H&R. That's okay.
So, did I outplay Phil? No. I just coolered him, hit my stop win, and I ran away.
Zepha says sorry for hidden running, but I had a 5K stop win and 20K stop loss. 5100 too big for me. LOL. All good. I appreciate the action. It was fun. Zepha, I'm glad that was the highest you've ever played. Then I'm glad you won. Well done. I don't recommend doing that again, but it is fun to take a shot, have a good stop loss and a stop win in mind, as long as it's within your means.
Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys liked the video.